Hi guys, I thought I'd make a video because Banned Book Week is coming up and I wanted to talk about banned books, and I just thought I'd do a video. ALA.org has put out a list of 100 books that are either banned or challenged around the world. Obviously I'm not going to talk about all 100 books. I'm only going to talk about the ones that I own, that I've read, or that I own that I haven't read yet. If you want to check out the full list, you can go to ALA.org and find it there. ALA is a website for intellectual freedom because we don't like banned books. We like to read books. And I personally have read quite a few on this list. I have not read them all, but maybe someday. Maybe someday I will read them all. So let's start with the books that I've read that are on the banned books list. There's all kinds of books on this list, classics to modern. It's just the most banned books in pretty much the last 10 years. So these are the ones that I've read. We've got 13 Reasons Why. Obviously you can see why this would be banned in some places because they're talking about suicide. Not going to try to spoil any books, but there might be some slight spoilers. I enjoyed the book, but I can see why it has been banned. This one kind of surprised me. The Hunger Games. I was not expecting to see the Hunger Games on there, but I guess it makes sense because we're talking about kids murdering other kids as a game. This makes sense. I enjoyed the book. I recommend reading it. Yeah. There were quite a few Ellen Hopkins books on this list, and I love Ellen Hopkins, and I've read many of her books. I love her writing style, so I recommend reading her even though some of her books have been banned. First two I'll talk about is Crank and then the sequel, Glass. These books were amazing. I loved this series. I highly recommend them. It's about drug use and abuse, and it is kind of heavy, and I think she does an amazing job with it. It's a very hard thing to talk about, and I just really recommend it. I think that this series is good. There's another book that comes after this, and I don't know, I really liked it. Another Ellen Hopkins book, Burned. This one wasn't my favorite of hers, and I'm not exactly sure why it was banned. I guess, like, she talks about religion a lot, and it could be kind of offensive, but I don't know if that's enough reason to ban it. It was entertaining to read, I guess. There's a sequel to this one too, but not one of my favorites of hers, but still read it. I just love her writing style. That's why I read it and the sequel. Last one that I've read that was on the list by Ellen Hopkins, and that is Tricks. I liked this book. It was alright. It's been a long time since I've read it, so I don't remember a lot of specifics about it. I remember it talks a lot about prostitution. There is a sequel to this one too that was not on the list, but I liked it. It was good. Those were all the modern ones that I've read that were on the list. Now I'll get into some of the classics that were banned that were on the list. Starting with Diary of a Young Girl by Anne Frank. I was very surprised to see this one on the list. I love this book. I've read it multiple times. I think it teaches us so much about what the Holocaust was like, and the fear, and also how people can still have joy while they're going through some of the hardest things they've ever had to go through. No, not some. The hardest thing they've ever had to go through, facing death, and they can still hold on to their beliefs. And I think this book is inspiring, and I don't understand why it's been banned. I think everybody should be reading this book. It teaches so much. I was not surprised to see The Catcher in the Rye on this list. I read this book in college for fun, and I didn't hate it. I mean, it's not my most favorite book on the planet, but I mean, it was entertaining to read. I know a lot of people don't like it. There's a lot of like sexual content, profanity. Other people just think it's really boring, but I thought it was entertaining, and I don't really see why it needs to be banned. I think there's a lot worse books out there than this one, but yeah, to each their own. To Kill a Mockingbird. I knew this book was going to be on there, and I don't know why. I think this is a great book. Yes, there is profanity. Yes, there are racial slurs, but they're there for a purpose, and it's to teach us, and it is to make us a better people. I think everybody needs to read this book. It is an amazing book. The sequel to this book was not on the list. I wasn't a huge fan of the sequel, but this book is amazing. If you haven't read it, you need to read it. It is just a work of art and can teach you so much. It can teach the world so much. Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. I was not surprised that this was on there. Again, just like in To Kill a Mockingbird, there's a lot of racial slurs, a lot of profanity. But again, I feel like we can learn so much from this book. I don't think it should be banned. I think we need to be reading this book because those racial slurs and profanity are there for a purpose. Yeah, I just think we should be reading these books. They shouldn't be banned. Of Mice and Men. I was kind of surprised to see this book on there. I guess I get why. I guess I'm not going to say too much because it's such a short book. I don't want to spoil anything, but I think this is a really quick read, a good book. I guess I see why this is on there, but I don't agree. There's just some hard decisions that have to be made in this book, and we've all had to make hard decisions in our life, not as hard as the decisions in this book, but we can still learn a lot from this book. Now, there were only 2 books that I had that were on the banned books list that I have not read. There are obviously many more books on the list that I don't have that I haven't read, but I only had 2 that were on there that I hadn't read. The first one really surprised me. I did not expect The Perks of Being a Wildflower to be on there. I haven't read this book, so I don't really know a whole lot about it. I haven't seen the movie, so I guess I don't understand why it's on there. I wasn't expecting to see it on there. So if you've read this, let me know if you agree or disagree. And lastly, A Clockwork Orange. I was not surprised that this was on here. I haven't read it, I haven't seen the movie, but I've just heard a lot about it, and I'm not surprised that it is on this list. So if you've read this book, tell me why you agree or disagree with it being on the banned books list. I hope to read this book soon. I hope to read The Perks of Being a Wildflower soon. But we'll see when I get to them because I have a lot of books on my TBR. The only other book on there that I don't have with me, I'll explain. The Holy Bible was on the list. I have read the Bible. I have 2 versions of the Bible. One I have read, the other have not. I guess I get why the Bible would be on it, but I don't at the same time because it's a religious book. So those are all the books that I have personally that were on the banned books list that I have read and that I haven't read. If you check it out, check out the list and let me know what books you've read or books that you own or books that you want to read on that list, and let me know also if you agree with banning books or if you disagree. I believe books should never be banned. We should be reading them and we should be learning from them, even if they have really hard content, even if they have really vulgar content and controversial content. We need to be reading these books so we can have the discussions about them. If we just ban them, we're never going to have the discussion about them. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you don't know who I am, my name is Jordan and I'm a book nerd. Thanks for talking books with me.